All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. I just have to remind everyone that it's probably best to mute when you're not intending to talk, just because there's probably background noise, and it will help everyone be able to hear if you're the only person intending to talk is muted. And welcome. James, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Okay, hello, everyone. This is this week's Jenkins X office hours. We've got a couple of people on the call. We're going to have a little demo from Gareth Evans today, which is going to show some of the work that he's been doing around some integration with CodeShip and Terraform as well. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So before I guess we do that, did anybody have any questions or anything? So maybe it's worth having a little update of what people have been doing this last 2 weeks. Any new cool things that's coming up in the Jenkins X world? Cosmin, you just popped up on my screen, so maybe you could kick that off. What have you been up to?
So do you hear me? It's fine.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm working right now is SSO operator that we get signal sign-on running inside of Jenkins X. So that's my main focus right now. And yeah, I'm building an operator, and it will work with DEX, OpenID Connect provider, which is basically only a proxy towards various identity providers, such as Google, whatever, Azure Active Directory, GitHub, and so on. Probably we will start with GitHub first. So yeah, I'm using the Jenkins X completely to manage the deployment of the operator. I got it running. Now I'm trying to get the gRPC running with the DEX. Yeah, I have to sort out some secrets to move them from one namespace to another and so on. But yeah, I'm progressing on this side.
Yeah, really just to highlight that as well, I was totally impressed. You are actually properly dogfooding everything with, you are creating and building it out with Jenkins X. Well played. Exactly. Nicely done, Cosmin.
Yeah.
Bonus points. Awesome. Okay, well, that's really exciting stuff that's coming through there. Ian, you're there as well. Can you hear us? Or maybe what have you been up to?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Excellent. Yeah, so lots of testing. The main thing that I've been focusing on in the last sort of week or so really has been getting parallel builds to complete without any kind of like manual sort of interference. So without being required to go in and either re-kick off certain builds because they failed because of clashes, or to go in and resolve merge conflicts. And yeah, there's a PR for that now. So I think, fingers crossed, that's done and works. There might still be an edge case or two lurking in there somewhere, but it seems pretty solid. Like I've been sort of testing it quite a lot, and yeah, I get sort of consistent passes now. I kind of hardened up the actual sort of test runners themselves as well, because occasionally they just get like a network disconnection, and then the test would fail just because the Jenkins client got disconnected momentarily. So there's like a retry on that now. So, if there's any kind of like flaky network or anything like that, it won't just fail the test. You get sort of false failure. I suppose the most interesting sort of part of that really is just adjusting sort of Jenkins configuration itself, just to make it do sort of PR builds without attempting to merge like on sort of the PR side, which was the sort of blocker really. Oh, and the other thing was adding into the default environments, the concurrent builds only option, which just prevents sort of clashing where two sort of competing builds are both trying to deploy to master at the same time. It's possible that I had a sort of weird edge case where basically one would hang forever because it was waiting for something that had been declared in one of the other manifests that wasn't actually there. It would just sit there forever and just kind of wait. So it now does those sequentially. And I guess with the Prow stuff that you're working on, sort of going in, and maybe if we can get the promotion containers down to like a smaller footprint so they can kind of spin up real fast, then you know, then it'll be really slick and just really sort of solid in terms of just being able to push. You know, you can just kind of, you can have, you know, n number of apps, and you could just be pushing to all of them at the same time, and it's just going to handle it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, just got, I mean, just today, just having a look at the whole sort of chart museum thing and looking to switch that out to sort of Google or sort of cloud native storage. And
probably worth explaining a little bit why on that one, because just to jump in,
yeah,
probably one of the another, again, the stability things that we're actually looking at. You're doing a great job of actually just looking at how we can improve stability of tests, but also then the services we're actually providing. And quite a few people have come up, have been hit with issues with our charting museum is down. So yeah, just maybe give a bit of.
Yeah, so I mean, basically the kind of like a single point of failure at the moment, because our chart museum, you know, if we need to tear down our cluster or if there's any kind of issue there, then, you know, anyone trying to pull those charts is basically going to hit a problem. And especially if you're testing, you can end up with these, you know, you end up with failures basically that aren't really anything to do with what you're doing, especially if you're trying to sort of test something that potentially you might be like sort of wanting to make a PR or something like that. So yeah, we've been kind of knocking internally, we've been kind of knocking a few ideas around about how to kind of handle that, and just settled on, I think we've settled on like pretty much the simplest way that we could do it, which I quite like, which is basically just we switch our sort of back end, the actual storage to, in our case, it'll be Google Cloud, but I mean, it could really be anything, it could be like S3 or whatever. And then we expose that bucket read-only publicly and actually use like that endpoint as the source from which we're pulling our charts. So even if Chart Museum isn't actually running on the cluster, it's not going to break anything, and we've basically got as much uptime as Google's you know, sort of cloud implementation, which hopefully should be pretty good. And it's nice and simple as well. I mean, there is the sort of adjoining issue of proxy access, and if you can't get to those, you know, you can't get to those addresses, and sort of how to sort of mitigate that. But I think we've kind of broken it out into kind of like two separate problems now, and we'll probably look at the proxy thing separately and try and sort of solve that for people that have got, you know, really restrictive firewalls or you know, can't do that for whatever reason. And sort of try and solve that separately, but that should really sort of firm up things in terms of the builds. And obviously, I think other James mentioned as well that that's kind of our goal in terms of switching out the actual JX deployments for, you know, for users as well. So you know, you'll have like a persistent volume basically. It's like mounting in, and you know, if you're blowing away a cluster or doing anything like that, you should bring it back up, and your chart museum should be in the same state that you had it at before.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And then we should be able to make that quite nice and configurable, because we've got our different, we can override the values, the Helm values for our different cluster types. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, that should work then on like the other big clouds as well, and other cloud storage.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So then other people should be able to follow the same pattern if they want to do something themselves and customize their own applications, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome stuff.
It's like
Brilliant.
it's fault tolerant all the way down.
Yes. Brilliant. Okay. Excellent. Thanks. James, I can see you giggling there. So,
I don't know why I was giggling. I was just happy about the fault tolerance all the way down. I guess, speaking of fault tolerance, let me talk about something that's not fault tolerant. Well, no, EKS is fault tolerant, and Amazon is, and COPS on Amazon is. One thing that's always been a bit of a tricky thing with, so let me step right back. Using Jenkins X on Amazon has been slightly different to using Azure and Google. With both of those two, if you create an ingress controller, you get a stable IP address. So we could do the NIP.io kind of hack to avoid you having to do wildcard DNS. Strictly speaking, in a real production install of Jenkins X, we should all do wildcard DNS, so we get multi-availability zones and all that kind of good stuff, just like Google Storage and S3. But it's one of those things, if you just want to kick the tires, having to have your own DNS name that you can set up a DNS wildcard just to try out Jenkins X, it was always, we saw that as a bit of a unnecessary barrier to entry, really. Particularly as most developers, well, most of us mess up DNS the first time we try and configure it, and then nothing would work, and then you'd have nothing in Jenkins X to use, because if you can't talk to Jenkins, you're kind of screwed. So we've always had this kind of deficiency on Amazon that we couldn't work without wildcard DNS properly. It could cut with elastic load balancers, ELBs, do have IP addresses, but they kind of change randomly. So they survive for a few hours. So for a few hours, you've got a Jenkins X cluster, and then it's completely useless because you can't see anything anymore, which has been kind of a bit of a worry. I mean, it's only really affects folks kicking the tires, really. Like if you're doing a real install, you should always use DNS, but this is more of a tire kicking thing. So we've had lots of kind of emails and discussions of how to do this properly. Had lots of help from some Amazon folks, which is really nice. So the official story is, if you want stable IP addresses, you have to use the new load balancers in Amazon called the NLBs, network load balancers, rather than so elastic load balancers are the old ones, and NLBs, network load balancers, are the new ones. I've got a pull request I'm just about to submit that switches to NLBs by default for COPS and EKS. One fly in the ointment was NLBs work perfectly today with COPS, which is awesome. They don't work with EKS right now because of roles. If anything doesn't work on Amazon, it's usually because of roles. We're using EKS CTL under the covers, which is a really lovely tool from the Weaveworks folks, which you can just type EKS CTL, create cluster, and it creates a cluster, which sounds so simple and trivial. Like you do gcloud, create cluster, and it just creates a cluster. On Amazon, oh, it's a totally different world, and creating a cluster involves all kinds of things. So EKS create cluster under covers creates the roles and the VPC and the backplane and the node pools and all the various things you need to do to boot up EKS. So we're using EKS CTL, but NLB was one issue that EKS CTL didn't support the roles necessary for NLB, unfortunately. But Ilya has been helping us really well. Thanks, Ilya at Weaveworks. And he's, as I say this, well, I'm typing as well at the same time, but as I talk, Ilya is just about to release beta 3 or beta 4 of EKS CTL, which as soon as that's available as a binary, I'm going to submit the pull request to use it. So by, say, tomorrow, if you do JX create cluster EKS, it will use the new binary of EKS CTL, and it will use an NLB. And then if you don't use wildcard DNS, your EKS cluster should survive for more than a few hours. Like the next day, you should still be able to use your Jenkins X cluster, which would be awesome, because that's been a kind of a slightly embarrassing issue that we've had ever since. So pretty much this week, COPS and EKS should work awesome for Jenkins X. And it uses Elastic Container Registry under the covers by default as well, which is nice. So actually, after this, well, by the end of this week, Amazon should be the best supported cloud, really, because we still don't automate Google Container Registry yet, or Azure Container Registry out of the box, which I hope we can fix that pretty sharpish, because it's slightly embarrassing. We haven't sorted that yet. All the hard work's done. We just need to get the IAM role set up so that on GCP we can push to GCR, and on Azure we can do the same. So those should be easy to fix. And then all the three big clouds will use Elastic Container Registry and will use ingress properly. This whole lesson has reminded me how awesome DNS is and how we should all use it all the time, because we kind of often forget that. But it is that thing that to kick the tires with Jenkins X, you kind of don't want to have to do the whole DNS dance just to try it out for a couple of hours and then tear it down. But in a real install, we should all be using Wildcard DNS. I have added the code to set up Route 53 on Amazon, Wildcard DNS entries if you choose to do that. So you get prompted, would you like to use Wildcard DNS? And yes is the default, by the way. And if you say yes, it tries to do that. I'm not sure that bit actually works yet. I haven't tested it. It compiles, but I'm hoping to test that to check it works. But if that does work, it would be nice to do the same thing on Google and Azure, because they all have a DNS-y kind of thing. So it'd be kind of nice to automate setting up the DNS, because it's so easy to mess that up. And people often pick the wrong thing, but they mount to, and they put wildcards in the domain name when they shouldn't, and all this kind of stuff. So it'd be kind of nice to automate that. I've seen a few issues fly by where when people try to do wildcard DNS, they point the wildcard DNS at the API server, not the ingress controller. So the more we can kind of automate that bit, the better, really, because we basically want a wildcard DNS that resolves to the host name or IP of the ingress controller. Then we can get in from the outside to talk to any services in Kubernetes. But yeah, sorry for that big ramble, but basically EKS is almost there, like within 24 hours of being awesome, and COPS is pretty much there, and ingress is all pretty much sorted on Amazon finally, which has taken way longer than I imagined. And we're really close on ACR and GCR, which will be really nice. Having really nice out of the box container registry and ingress and load balancer support is really, really nice for the big three clouds.
And we can then remove the internal Docker registry that we're unauthenticated at the moment.
Actually, we can do that right now really easily. We should probably just do that for Amazon, because right now it defaults to ECR, so we might as well just disable the Docker registry by default.
Yeah.
That might sort of like as a sort of trickle down sort of benefit enable us to start using multi-stage builds as well for our images.
Yeah. Although the only problem is we can't assume everyone is always using the latest. So some people won't have anybody who is using the internal Docker registry probably can't use multi-stage, but I'd love to use multi-stage. As soon as we go Canico, all bets are off. Yeah. Just do whatever. Once Canico's the default, which I'd love that to happen, by the way, make Canico the default, then we can go as quick as we want to multi-stage and greatest Docker build features.
I saw some blog, and I didn't realize there's actually you can do inline, use Canico. There's a builder image for it, so you can actually do a Docker pull of Canico, and then you can actually do the build inside that.
You can run it. You can run it in Docker.
Yeah.
Like a Docker in Docker. Yeah.
So we should be able to just switch out our.
I tested already with a builder base image locally. Yeah. I run it in a Docker container, not in a Kubernetes job, because anyhow, if we want to run it in the agents, we cannot use jobs because we need to spawn jobs out of the agent, and at this time, I guess it's not possible. We need to run it inside of the agent in a container, probably. It's the easiest.
But then Scaffold can use Canico in the build pod.
And then we are safe.
Then we're safe. So we just need to get that working. I mean, it should work. I think there might be just a secret. There might be a secret required to push.
Yes, you need to mount a Docker secret inside of Canico container, and then it works. Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get that sorted pretty soon. Yeah.
Most painful.
Yes. So I mean, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can get ACR and GCR sorted. So
it works, I guess, natively with JCR, so it works like straight out of the box. But if you want to use Docker registry or Docker Hub, you need to mount the token inside.
That's the only thing we have, which requires privileged containers, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then we don't need to run any more agents in privilege mode.
Yeah. But all of Jenkins X should be should be okay. I think that's the only thing that we're actually running.
I think the build pod would still need to be privileged though to run Canica. I think.
No, you can.
Doesn't it require privilege? I can't remember. No.
No.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should try to get that done soon.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
EKS CTL is just released. Woohoo! So I'm just going to do my pull request now. Awesome.
So actually, okay, so on from that as well, something I guess 2 weeks ago was the last one we did, but there's now quite a few people have asked about it. There's a JX upgrade ingress command that people can, once you've actually created your cluster, you can switch out, you can change your DNS. So if you're using the nip.io wildcard initial thing to kick the tires with the cluster, if you then want to switch to a real domain, then you can do JX upgrade ingress. And there's a little wizard in there that also allows you to enable Cert Manager. So we have integration with Cert Manager to generate signed certificates from Let's Encrypt. So you can switch to HTTPS ingress rules. Jenkins X will automate everything and recreate all the ingress rules with your new domain and signed certificates, which is pretty cool as well.
So that also means you can start with nip.io and then do DNS later. So you can, rather than install time doing the full thing, you could just install it once, play around without doing DNS, then do DNS later, then do JX upgrade ingress when you're ready.
Yeah.
Awesome. Or switch to TLS whenever you want as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So I guess there's three. You start with nip.io, then you go DNS, then you go TLS. You could do them whenever you feel happy to do them.
Yeah, and you as a flag to do cluster wide as well, or just in the namespace you're actually in, so which is quite handy. Cool. All right. Mitcha, there wasn't. I guess you're working on non-community stuff, really, but I did notice you did the tray, the desktop tray thing. Was that what it's called?
So that was maybe, I can. So that was like I think like 2-3 weeks ago. So it's just an initial repository, but I mean it works. It's a tray application in a sense that when you start the app, which is Electron based, is the same as Visual Code and Atom and Slack, and uses that for creating the native app. Adds a tray icon at the top in the menu bar on Mac. You could build basically Windows or client, anything, but there is nothing specific to Mac. I mean, everything is kind of abstracted away. But basically, it adds a tray icon. You click on it, and you see like a drop down, basically a window. And at the moment, it's not at the same stage as the Visual Code plugin, but the code is the same. It adds a watcher, and then it basically prints out the pipelines. The cool thing is that from that app you can also execute commands. So we have a command to open that the thing that we are the commercial side that we are working on. But the idea is that it's the same as with Visual Code, where you basically click on a pipeline and then you can execute that in a terminal. The same is here. It's just doing that behind the scenes. Is using it basically opens the command in your terminal, whatever is your default terminal setup in OS. So you could execute anything you want. You could also, like I was talking with Rob, you could do like that. You can grab a folder and then drag and drop on that icon, and you can import, do a JX import. It's basically, I had a bunch of problems setting everything up because everything is TypeScript, and with Electron it was kind of messy. And also I had a problem with Kubernetes client, which is that open source one from Kubernetes project. It doesn't work in Electron environment, so I had to patch it. Basically, the Kubernetes client is using Shell.js, which is like a wrapper around the terminal functions, and I had to. There is a PR which fixes that. I have it locally, it works, and I also created a PR for the Kubernetes client, which I remembered. I haven't followed up. I have to sign up some agreement or something like that, but it looks fine. It's basically it's just a patch. Basically, they have like a synchronous API, but if you switch to async, then it works also in an electronic environment, because the way it's wrapped, some certain APIs are not available, so it's just that. So there was a bunch of stuff to get here, but then the idea is to have the same functionality as in Visual Code extension. You can run it locally. You just npm install starts the app, and then you can have an app which is, you can update it on the fly, because Electron supports that. You can update itself when you create a new release on GitHub, for example. And like I said, because you have access to the terminal, you can create whatever UI you want, and you're not locked down to any specific IDE. You can do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm quite excited to see how that goes. I am keeping an eye on it, but yeah, nicely done.
Thanks.
I guess before we go on to Gareth, I'll give a quick update about some of the stuff. So I'm looking at integrating Prow into Jenkins X. So for anybody that doesn't know what Prow is part of the test infrastructure project on the Kubernetes GitHub org. What they do is Prow is like an event webhook thing that handles webhook events from GitHub, and then updates pull requests. You can actually then comment. So if you add a comment on a pull request, that will send a webhook event, and Prow will intercept this, and then it can trigger jobs. So in Kubernetes, what we're looking at doing is using that for the promotion at the moment, for when folks are using GitHub or GitHub Enterprise, rather than using Jenkins to do the promotion of an application into a staging or production environment. We're actually going to use Prow. What's really cool about Prow is it seems to be lots of other projects are actually using it. Istio is one, and most of the Kubernetes projects are actually using Prow. So it seems to be a bit of consistency about a common way of working for developers. If you have a pull request with WAIP in it, for example, it'll automatically add a label to your pull request of do not merge, various other things like this. And then when you can trigger your CI tests. If you have somebody raising a pull request you don't know, you might want to validate there isn't anything dangerous in that pull request before triggering your CI tests, for example. And then you also set things up like you can have auto merge as well, so that if it passes all your CI checks, an LGMT comment will actually auto merge, and then we can have our releases. So it's a real great way that developers in the open source projects around Kubernetes are using, and it looks like a great fit for actually having a developer workflow way in Jenkins X. So very excited about that. That's tying into some of the work that Gareth's going to show now. It's a bit picky, but we're getting there. So hopefully by the next update, that should all be in there. So Gareth, you're going to blow us away with an amazing live demo, right?
Oh, great. No pressure. Yeah, apologies. I'm actually still wearing my gym kit from heading to the gym this afternoon. And I got so into debugging something that was going wrong that I haven't had a shower yet. So it's lucky you can't smell me through the.
It's glad we work remotely, eh?
Yes, yeah. So just before I start, I'm going to put this little slide up. This is kind of. Oh no, I need to share my screen first, don't I? All right, let me know when you can see that.
I can see me. Yeah.
Okay, so just going to put this little slide up here. So this is basically just an overview of what I'm doing. So I'm going to run 3 commands, and what that's going to do is we're going to first create a GKE service account. We're then going to create some Terraform config that creates a repository, populates that repository with the config that we've requested, and the third step is to create a code ship build that will automatically trigger that and start applying a cluster looking like what you can see on the right hand side of the screen. Just to prove that none of it actually exists at the moment, this is my Google Cloud Console, and I'm going to refresh that just so it's definitely there. And then this is my CodeShip account. This is I think it's the basic tier. It's just a free account that's set up. All right. So can you all see that window, and is that big enough?
Yeah, it looks good.
Cool. Yeah, looks great.
We learned from the other week of disabling the transparency. Makes it much easier to see. So I'm going to run. I've got a fairly recent version of JX. I think it was built either yesterday or today. But the first command I'm going to run is to create a service account. And I haven't got code completion working yet, James. That is going to ask you to log in. I'll use this one down here. I'll go back to this window. And it's going to ask for a name for the account, and it's going to try and work out which project it can assign it to. But if you've only got access to one project, it will automatically select that. So let's call it. That's chosen the Google Cloud project that we want to use. It's now going off to try and understand if we've got enough permission to create that account. And I think it's the set IAM policy role that it looks for. That's the key one. And it goes through and assigns the particular roles that it needs to be able to administer a cluster and manage the storage in the way that we need to do it. And at the end of this, it's going to download that service account key. There we are. So 1 out of 3, that's good. I'll clear this. So the next step is we're going to create some Terraform config. So we have a command for this. I can give it an org name, which I'm also going to call office hours. And I'm going to tell it 2 extra things. So I'm going to pass in the GKE servers account to make sure the permissions are correct. And I'm going to also tell it not to apply the Terraform once it's generated it. So what it's going to do is create the repo, add some config to it, and commit that repo back into Git. And because I didn't specify any clusters on the command line, it's going to prompt me and ask me how many. So I'm just going to select the defaults for this. So I'm going to say 1, so it's going to be called dev. It's going to be a GKE. And I would like to install Jenkins X inside the dev cluster. And I want to use me as my username. Choose the repository. And it's going to go. This checking whether the services are enabled actually takes a bit of time. That's something I've got on my list of things to see if there's a way that we can speed that up a little bit, because it seems to be sort of most of the effort is done in that one function.
So whilst that's doing, what's the significance of the storage? You mentioned the permissions of the storage. So what's been stored in there?
Yeah, sure. So Terraform, by default, it generates a state file, and it needs to store that state somewhere. By default, it will just use the local file system. But if you're trying to trigger this from a CI server or from multiple machines, you want to put that somewhere in the cloud. So that the Terraform that gets generated is automatically configured to use a Google storage bucket at the back end.
Awesome, yeah.
I'm just going to put this in Belgium. Usual machine size. And with the defaults for the size. This is going to start creating this. Oh, and that's complete. If I just show you what the structure of that looks like, the directory. You have an inside your JX folder, you have an organizations directory. And inside that, you'll have there'll be one for the name of the organization. And if I do this, you'll see inside we have basically a build sh, which is what CodeShip is going to use to apply the changes. We have a cluster clusters directory might be the subfolder for each cluster that you want to create. And then sort of, I suppose the main important one is this terraform.tfrs file, which is here, which is where all of your actual configuration for that cluster is stored. So all the options that you've selected, such as the zone and the machine type and the number of nodes, that's where they get persisted. So that's 2 steps worked. So the third and final step is to create the code ship build that's going to push this up. So I'm just going to clear the screen so it gets back to the top again. So we have a command for this one as well. Again, we specify the organization that we're dealing with, so office, and we need to specify the GK service account again. And now it's going to prompt for us to log into CodeShip. We don't persist this information anywhere, it's only for the initial job creation. It's not required anywhere else. Speaking to James about putting this in one of the sort of secrets files or the auth files at some point. But I'm just going to log in with my account. Yeah. Locate it again. It knows that organization exists, and the build has been triggered, and that's the trigger ID. So if I just bring back my main window here, if I refresh this screen, we can see that organization office hours there's a build has been created, and that build is now triggered. Give it a few seconds. It's cloning the repository, and it will start doing a JX, basically a Terraform apply against that environment.
Awesome. So we have CI for creating and managing upgrades to clusters, to multiple clusters as well.
Yeah. So this will work with, this works with more than one cluster. We've still got the Prow problem to solve, so I wouldn't suggest using this for more than one cluster at the moment. But because it's actually looking at the GitHub repo that contains the organization config, if you make a pull request or you merge a commit into that repo, it will trigger a new build and effectively an upgrade.
Which
that's awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we could add a CLI to add a cluster. So once you could start with one cluster because it's just a folder, right? It's a folder in the Git repo. We could do it. We could generate the pull request to add a cluster after you've created one. So that's awesome.
I think the existing CLI is very, very close from doing that. If you specify an organization that already exists, I've been looking at it today. There's just one flag I think we need to remove or tweak, and it should add another cluster config to an existing environment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Woohoo! So this solves the problem of currently when we first created the JX CLI, the wizards and everything, which was great, but to kick the tires, creating a cluster. But when in any enterprise organization or anybody that's going to be using in a team for real, kind of creating that configuration, having it stored locally, it's just not ideal. So having all of this actually managed full GitOps for the dev environment as well, and for your clusters is practicing what we preach. So this is pretty awesome stuff, to be honest. Woohoo! Yeah. Well done. Oh, so there you go. Oh, well, are we gonna wait to watch it go green, or are you gonna call that a success?
It's gonna take about 20 minutes, unfortunately. And actually, there is a slight bug at the moment in the JX install afterwards. There was this one we were looking at the other day, James, to do with the Git auth server. It's a bit strange. It's like the second time round, you get like a partially incomplete thing. So I have a pull request in that should fix that, but I just haven't had time to get it merged and test it fully.
One short question. So now if I go and modify the Terraform, I just commit something. So then the code ship will kick the build and then upgrade my cluster immediately.
Yeah, that's the case. Yeah.
which is pretty nice, right? It's configuration.
Yeah, I was going to change the output of the Terraform plan to make it a bit more verbose, so you can actually see everything that it is applying, because it's quite quiet at the moment.
So currently the default admin password is that being stored in the config in there?
No, that's actually displayed on the first install screen. So when you look at the output, so that's again something that we could look at. We could specify that as an option, generate a password and apply that up as an environment variable for CodeShip to handle.
Yeah, I was just wondering about because then it's in a couple of weeks when we're looking at the Vault integration, for example, about the secrets management. But that's cool.
The other piece is I've got an open question, I suppose, about how we would tie this back to a version of the sort of JX platform.
Yeah, I was hoping we could put the version in the Terraform that we want to install.
I think so. I think if that Helm provider doesn't quite work.
Yeah, it's not quite ready yet, but I've almost got a Jenkins X Terraform provider that one of the parameters is the version. And under the covers, it's kind of doing a JX install with the version. So I'm hoping, like, once this is kind of working with the Prow and everything, I'm hoping we could try out the Terraform provider for JX and do things like define environments in Terraform, define the version of JX you wish to use, and then do upgrades of Jenkins X via Terraform.
Yeah, because then you could just use UpdateBot to trigger on a...
Exactly. Automatic pull requests as we do releases.
So for UpdateBot kind of, from my understanding, it kind of pushes out changes. So you build the JX platform and it pushes out a change to...
makes a pull request.
Makes a pull request. Okay. Yeah. So how would that work for essentially organizations that we don't own?
Yeah, one thing that was always on the roadmap of UpdateBot that we never got around to building, but we're almost at the stage whether we really need it, so we might end up building something, is how can anybody subscribe to like right now we push, but we want people to subscribe to pull those updates. There's various different things we could do, like the people could pull or something like that, or people could register, please pull request me, and here's a GitHub organization or whatever. We just need to figure out what's the right way of doing the pub sub kind of thing. It doesn't have to be super time critical. We could make sure that every day we run UpdateBot to push changes to everybody or something. But if there's like 5 million people want to generate pull requests on their own organizations, it might be better for them to pull rather than us push. But some kind of way, like right now already, UpdateBot can pull. You can say things like, pull any new versions you can find for my stuff. So, and you could do that, every day or every hour. So there's a pull option, but it's not quite awesome yet. I mean, what would be really, really nice is if you could add into this CI job an automatic pull of versions of Jenkins X. I don't know if that would be part of the CodeShip CI or something like that, but
I mean, if it can be done with UpdateBot, we should be able to do something like that.
Yeah,
because Java is available on the CodeShip sort of base image that you get.
But, we were hoping it might be Go soon.
Yeah, one day we might want to write something in Go. So just a quick bit of dirty laundry for a second. So we're using UpdateBot inside Jenkins X to push version changes of anything, like a base image, a library, the Jenkins X binary. Whenever we release the binary, we do a pull request on Docker images to use the new binary version, all this kind of stuff. So we're using loads of UpdateBot. One of the slight issues, though, is UpdateBot right now pulls. So whenever you're doing pull requests, it's polling to see are the pull requests merged so it can kind of complete the build. Once we're using Prow and we've got that kind of sorted, it'd be kind of nice to stop UpdateBot polling. Because right now we keep running out of GitHub API tokens, even though we're authenticated, which you get 5,000 an hour, and we burn through those really, really quick thanks to UpdateBot. But I think we almost need to reimagine UpdateBot inside a Prow kind of world.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one of the main things, the only real things update bot's doing. Like, okay, so if we're updating, say, I don't know, builder base, the builder base Docker image, once that's released, we have to do pull requests on like 10 Git repos. But we want to fail the release of builder base if any of those pull requests fail, to give that feedback to the team that builder base is now broken or builder base broke something. All we really want to do is two things: auto merge all those pull requests and deal with merge conflicts, which Prow can kind of do all that. And then when the merge is completed, trigger something so that we can know, do we mark this, the builder base release is completed or not? If we can get all that working, then just the webhooks coming from GitHub will be enough to trigger all of this flow. And we can stop all this polling kind of crap, and everything will be faster, and everything can be kind of parallel and concurrent and everything. And then we can do better feedback. So we can kind of do things like, you know, raise an issue if a builder base pull request failed, you know, failed to merge or whatever. So we can get much better feedback. I mean, feedback is the main thing. Well, automation is a big thing of Updatebot, but feedback for me is a game changer of Updatebot. That if I do a release and I break a downstream repo, we should both hear about it. You know, the upstream team and the downstream team should get feedback. So yeah, I think soon we might have to do significant engineering on Updatebot, possibly rewriting it in Go, possibly. So it's easier to use in Prow and inside pipelines and everything like that. Because right now, okay, here's another bit of dirty laundry. We install a JVM in all of our builder images just so we can run Updatebot in part of the pipelines. So we have to rewrite it in Go, basically. We have to rewrite it in Go. We just have to.
If we change to Prow, it will be basically we need to redesign the entire workflow because it's event driven. The events come, they will come from GitHub, and then you can keep custom jobs in Prow to do, like, I don't know, version upgrades, updates, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then
maybe some easy way to create custom jobs in Prow to do, like, on this event, execute some action.
Yeah. Like what I'd really love to see. So imagine the builder base example. We're doing a release of builder base and we're doing pull requests on, say, 5 Git repos. We kind of want to see a visual checkbox of what are all the PRs that's being generated, like a little table on a pull request or a GitHub page or something, or an issue, whatever it is. Something on GitHub should have a little table with, here's all the pull requests of all the repos, and here's the green or red or pending. And Prow, when the feedback comes, could be updating this table. So if anybody wants to see in GitHub, how are we doing on the release? You know, which ones pass, which ones fail? That should just be a single, you know, piece of comment.
The issue. Yeah. The issue,
and then have if it passes or fails, do an action. Raise an issue, send a Slack message. You know,
and I guess another crazy stuff, if you connect multiple repos in Prow, you can aggregate events from different repos, and they kind of have a overview over all Git repos. Like you send some PR in one repo, let's say, and this has dependencies to other repos. And if you break them, you can go and see, okay, you just looked at the events and what happened. If we collect all the events and then we just put them, I don't know, in Elasticsearch or somewhere, and then just have a dashboard, maybe.
Yeah, I think that could be amazing.
Yeah.
Great. So some pretty cool things coming through. Gareth, your demo worked. Well played. There's a question. Hey, I have a question about enterprise Git. I've been talking with James. I was not sure which James, but about JX install. Oh, hello.
Hello. This is Nikash.
Hey, Nikash.
Hey, yeah. So I am trying to set up Jenkins X to configure with my my enterprise Git. I have I created a Jenkins X Git server on my enterprise Git, and I also created the token for that enterprise. But when I run JX install, specifying that enterprise Git provider URL, it still tries to create the Spring environments on a public GitHub. So github.com with my personal username. Do you know why this is?
I'm not totally sure, to be honest. When you type JX get Git server, does it show the Git server as an option? Because usually when you do like JX create Spring or JX import, whatever, you're given a choice of all the Git providers that you've got configured.
Yeah. So when I do JX get Git server, it shows both my public GitHub as well as my enterprise GitHub. JX install gives me the option to choose my enterprise Git, and even when I do select that, it still automates the creation of this environments to my public GitHub.
Oh, okay. So you have chosen the other Git provider,
yeah,
but it kind of ignores it and uses.
Yeah,
I think I've seen this, by the way, because last week I noticed we were also getting a lot of our PRs on JX were failing, and because they're timing out because we're getting rate limited, because the even though we're using GitHub Enterprise for our BDD test, the environments are actually on GitHub.
Right.
So I'm guessing it's exactly the same issue that you've got here. When we created it, it's actually not using the correct Git provider.
Right.
It's falling back to the default. So it sounds like a bug there. Yeah.
Okay.
That could even be related to the problem I'm having on CodeShip, because it's all the same function. It seems to be.
Is there anything I can do from my end to fix this, or is that something you guys take care of?
You could try debug it if you're feeling brave. Otherwise, someone just has to add some print statements into the code, or figure out why it's going wrong.
You can he can check. You can check quickly the pipeline activity for the event, and then you can see which Git provider is there. That we can at least figure out. Okay, we have a wrong pipeline activity for a wrong Git for the environment.
I think this is at the import stage, like before you've even when you're just creating a brand new Git repo, it's using the wrong Git provider.
Right.
So I think the simplest thing might be just to debug the JX import.
It's command. Really at the beginning. It doesn't kick the.
Yeah, it's right at the beginning, I think. So if we just try debugging there's a doc on how to debug it. If you can bear the setup of Go on your laptop, which is fairly painless, it's pretty easy to debug, and then we'll show you where the code is. You can just put a breakpoint and see, can you see what the code's doing wrong? Or one of us could debug it when we get a chance.
Gotcha. I'm relatively inexperienced with this this type of thing, so I'll try, but I'll be on the external support Slack channel and message you if I have any issues.
Cool.
Awesome.
If ever you fancy, if you feel brave enough to give it a try, because Go's kind of easy to understand. It's a fairly straightforward language, but yeah, it is a bit different. Here's the link on how to debug it.
Awesome.
But yeah, but we could try maybe do it together on Slack or something sometime.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So it'd be good to fix. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was a good question coming in there. That was nice. Was there anything else? We've almost we've got 5 minutes left. Was there anything else anybody wanted to mention?
There was the Vigo stuff, but that's pretty short and sweet. I might even be able to pick that in like. I was just going to show. I was literally just going to show. I don't know if anyone's like played around with it or anything, but I was amazed that it worked out JX's depths first time without any kind of faffing, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Did you want to just do a quick TLDR of what Vigo is, maybe?
Yeah, so Vigo is, I suppose, another official Go team experiment for version module inclusion in Go, actually in the Go command itself. So, there've been sort of 4 or 5 now, like package managers all flying around, and they've all got various different issues, and they've been slowly improving. But I think that it reached a point where, the core team were basically looking at it and saying, well, if we just had sort of versioned module imports and we didn't need to actually kind of resolve all versions of something to one thing somewhere, in your vendor directory or whatever, then this will make everyone's lives easier. And Vigo is basically their sort of release of that prior to it getting sort of released actually in Go itself. So if you're interested in sort of taking it for a spin, you can you can clone or go get Vigo, and then you can actually run you know, sort of Go as if it was using modules by just using the Go command instead of Go. And so far, I mean, I've only been messing with it for Jenkins X for, you know, sort of, I haven't really spent much time with it, but initial sort of signs are that it's pretty awesome. So I just got like a quick thing that I can show if you're interested. Okay, do I do my screen? I think it's this one. My entire screen.
Okay, we can see that. Yeah.
Okay, you can see that. Okay, is that, you see that okay? Or is that too small?
A little bit small, if you can.
Better? Better?
A little bit, maybe a little bit more if you if you can. Yeah, I think that's.
Oh, blimey, it's got really big. Okay. So basically, this is just master branch of Jenkins X as it currently stands with the vendor directory. So all I'm going to do is just whoops, remove vendor, and I need to quickly change this line. So basically, in the make file, the Go command, just switch it out to this, and basically all this does is just means inside all of the make scripts, it's going to use vgo instead of Go, and if it doesn't exist already, it's going to go and get it for you. And okay, one other thing I have to do is just so that you can see this as if I'd never run any of this before, is it basically downloads all of these deps into your Go path source directory in a directory called mod. So if I completely clear that out, oh, I'm gonna have to do that. So, you know, the first time that you run anything, it's basically going to try and resolve all the deps that way. And now, hopefully, if I just run and we're now vgoing. So it's pretty smart. It figures out basically if you're using some other sort of vendoring tool. Obviously, there's a Go package .toml and a .lock in this project. So it's kind of using it from there, and
so it's using the existing versions that we've got in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's basically, it's doing it's kind of like a slightly different, it's a slightly different approach to like sort of package, sort of version resolution, it seems, in that it's basically going to take the least up-to-date version that will result in success. So you can see now that's as if you'd never run it before. It's now downloaded all of the things and it's now running the tests. So we're now vgoing and or Go moduling, depending. And if you look at what it's actually done, it's just create these two files in the project, go.mod and go.sum. And basically the idea is that the more packages, libraries, projects that basically switch over to this, you're basically going to be able to, you're sort of responsible only for resolving your dependencies inside your project. So, you know, sort of if you're kind of downstream of that, then you're not going to get all of these clashes where you're trying to sort of combine two sets of vendoring and there's different versions, and it's just a nightmare because it will be able to build a really accurate graph of all of the imports all the way down. They just look like this. So pretty standard stuff, just a big old list. And if you do big list, it will just tell you what you've actually got. So you can see that it's now recognizing that basically this project is Jenkins X /JX, and anyone importing us from anywhere is basically going to have an easy ride in terms of resolving their dependencies with anything else they're doing. So yeah, that was it basically, just a really quick little thing, but it works really well, and it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Awesome. So we're all looking forward to Go 1.11 then, I guess.
Yeah.
Go modules.
Looks awesome.
Yeah,
and no
brilliant.
more Go path once you start using the modules.
So
Yeah,
that means
no
you
more
can. So does that mean you can just check out, clone a repo to any directory?
Yeah.
And build.
So I mean, it's
so long as there's a Go module file. Like if there's a Go module file, it just goes, I don't care about Go path anymore.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's what I saw and hoped it was. So yes, that's awesome. All right. Well, we're just past, just gone 5 o'clock. So I think that was pretty good. Hour. Thanks to everybody. Gareth, cracking job on your demo. And that was good involvement for everyone. So yeah. I guess till next time. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers,
See you guys.
Cheers.